Welcome to Eliot Hine TV on Ustream,
GCPS Career and Technical Education,
and the District Knowledge Network.
I'm your host, Addie Henkin.
I'm your host, Addie Talley.
I'm your host, Zana Pinchotti.
Did you know Eliot Hine Network has a new podcast and state-of-the-art studio?
Lock us in on Apple,
iHeart,
Spotify,
Pandora,
Google,
and Amazon Music.
Joining us as a guest on the show today is Ms. Pinchotti, CEO of the National Military Family Association.
Our show topic today is stand up, support, and enhance the quality of life for every military family.
Ms. Pinchotti, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Our first segment is Understanding Besa Pinchotti, the CEO of the National Military Family Association.
You do a lot of work helping military families, but what do you do specifically to help military kids?
Well, I noticed that Zana over here is wearing a shirt that says OK Bloomer. And Bloom is the military teen part of the National Military Family Association. And that's where military teens get together and support each other through the hard times. The other thing that we do is we have camps. It's a week of free sleepaway camp all around the country. And it is specifically for military kids so that they can get away from a lot of the stresses of military life.
Wow, that's really
That's very
impressive.
helpful.
That's great. What advice would you give a
that's me.
student to prepare for a career in your field?
I think the biggest thing about working in a nonprofit or in a place that supports others is really having a big heart and remembering why you're there. Sometimes work gets stressful the same way that school gets stressful, but just constantly reminding yourself what you're really there for is a great motivator every day.
What skills are most important for you to do your job successfully?
I would say flexibility, a willingness to work really hard, and also not being afraid to ask for support. I think sometimes we all understand that it's not easy to ask for help when you need it, but military families need help, and a big part of my job is asking people to support military families and to support me in helping those families.
That's very nice.
How do you make and stick to goals?
Interesting that you should ask because we are right in the middle of this big year-long process called strategic planning, and I work with every single member of our team, every single member of our board, and we think about where we want to be as an organization in 5 years and how we hope to make life better for military families over the next 5 years, and then we track those every single year and we say, are we meeting the mark? Do we need to shift or change anything? Much like what you all do in school when you're trying to achieve different things each year.
So it's a lot of communication.
Absolutely.
We are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
This broadcast is being brought to you by Eliot Hine TV on Ustream
And the District Knowledge Network.
I'm your host, Camilla.
I'm your host, Clara.
I'm your host, Isla.
Our show topic today is stand up, support, and enhance the quality of life for every military family.
Joining us as a guest on the show is Ms. Pinchotti, CEO of the National Military Family Association.
Our first segment was Understanding Besa Pinchotti, the CEO of the National Military Family Association.
Our second segment is bold advocacy, innovation programming, and responsive solutions.
How do you support the military and their families?
Well, you all live here in Washington, D.C., so you're probably really familiar with advocacy. And what that is making sure that the voices of military families, that means what they're going through and the issues that they're having, are brought to Washington, D.C., to Capitol Hill, so that lawmakers can make decisions that support those families better. And another thing that we do is we have camps for military kids to get them away from the stresses of military life. We have supportive programming for teens, and we also have scholarships for military spouses, because you all may know military families move every 2 to 3 years, and that means a lot of times it's hard to finish school and it's hard to maintain a job.
What are some challenges that you faced working with the National Military Family Association?
Well, on that advocacy point and raising the voices, one of the challenges going on right now is that budget that our Congress just can't seem to pass. And the fact that if we don't pass a budget, military families won't get paid. So one of the things that's really stressful for me and for this whole community is making sure that we're not asking our military to go into harm's way and care for our families every single day by supporting our country when we can't even promise them a paycheck.
What advice would you give to families that have someone in the military?
I would say just remember that your family is more than just your blood relatives or the people that you live with. You have a really broad family. We call ourselves the National Military Family Association, and we would want you to consider us a part of your family and also to remember the whole community around you, because that's how we support each other.
What's the hardest part of your job, and what do you do when you feel discouraged?
I think the hardest part of this job is actually fundraising, because it takes a lot of money to run an organization. It takes a lot of money to run programs, and there are so many good causes out there. I'm sure there are things that a lot of us care about. So just making sure that businesses and people around the country understand why it's important that they donate their money to military families and other causes. I would say that is the hardest part.
We are going to take a quick break and be right back.
This broadcast has been brought to you by Eliot Hine TV on Ustream.
DCPS Career and Technical Education.
and Additional Knowledge Network.
I'm your host, Kiara Lester.
I'm your host, Addie Henkin.
And I'm your host, John Vier.
Our show topic today is stand up, support, and enhance the quality of life for every military.
Joining us as a guest on the show, Mrs. Pinchotti, CEO of the National Military Family Association.
Our first segment was Understand Besa Pinchotti, the CEO of the National Military Family Association.
Our second segment was bold advocacy, innovation programming, and responsive solutions.
Our third segment is helping military families.
In your career path, what has surprised or inspired you?
I think that the thing that has surprised me most is that I ended up here. I thought in my mind that my career was going one way and it went a completely different way. In fact, I used to be on TV like you guys are now. Then I worked in technology and I was doing marketing. And then I went on a vacation and I came back and I decided that I wanted to do something that felt good in my heart. I wanted to support military families. So I applied here and over the years worked my way up through the organization and became CEO. But that was nowhere on my radar. So I think maybe a good learning from that is what you think is your path is not necessarily your path.
How many families have you helped, and how can our viewers support your organization?
Well, when you think about our advocacy, the things that we work for on Capitol Hill, that supports all military families. So that's millions when we're talking about the benefits and the way that we care for them as a country. But when you think about the way we've supported people at camps or through our scholarships, I would say that's in the hundreds of thousands. So we started this programming at the very beginning of the Iraq War. And throughout the years, it's been tens of thousands of military family members each year.
Can you share an important experience you had and what you learned from it?
Yeah. Sometimes we have these really great ideas. Like we think they're a really great idea. So we had this thought that we wanted to support families of the wounded, ill, or injured. And we wanted to bring some of the family members to a camp. And we thought that would be a great thing to do that the families would enjoy. Well, along the way, we realized that it's not always easy for the military spouse or the child to leave a wounded service member at home. Those service members need care. And so between getting child care for that wounded, ill, or injured service member, and all of the different ways that they needed to organize their lives, a lot of them just couldn't come. So what seemed like a really great idea, and we were like, here's this help, and we're going to give it to you, they couldn't even come and get it. So one of the things that I learned is to make sure that you're talking to the people before you're coming up with the answers for them and really listening.
Do you have any final thoughts for the students at Eliot Hine?
I think that you guys are incredible. You're very eloquent and you're just sitting up here feeling very confident and talking about serious subjects. So I think you're on a fantastic path. Just keep an open mind and a positive attitude, and I look forward to seeing all of you succeed.
Mrs. Pinchotti, thank you for being a guest on our show.
Thank you for having me.
This broadcast is being brought to you by Eliot Hine TV on Ustream.
Eliot Hine Network 1 on YouTube.
And the DPS Career and Technical Education.
I'm your host, Addie Henkin.
I'm your host, John Vier.
I'm your host, Kiara Lester.
Have a great